Jeff, if you want to change the results that you're getting, you might need to change the human being that you are. What are the things that are going to move the needle for you? Are you willing to learn the lessons you need to learn? Are you willing to make the mistakes that it takes to learn those lessons? Are you willing to put your foot in your mouth so you can learn never to say that again? Are you willing to read the books, listen to the podcasts, prepare like no one else prepares? And do you get the fulfillment from the work, or do you just get fulfillment from getting paid? Because there's a lot of easier ways to make money. Cost of knowledge is going through the floor.
Yeah.
It's going quickly. It's quickly approaching zero.
Yeah.
The value of expertise is going through the roof because now we have access to all this knowledge, and people confuse knowledge and wisdom all the time. They're not the same, St. You know this. You can't guarantee a win, but what you can do, and you can come really close to guaranteeing, is putting yourself in position to win. That is the job of the manager, is to put their team in a position to win.
What would you change about the sales training model? What's broken? What would you fix if you could? What do you see is the problem with it right now? Because I'm sure you've got an answer for this one. Okay, team, we are heading over waters and we're heading to a wonderful fellow by the name of Jeff Bajorek. We are going to talk to Jeff about all things sales leadership. This guy is a bit of a gun. He's a very modest fella, like all our guests, but he's got a pretty impeccable track record. President's Club, exits, high sales in the medical space. Jeff, welcome to the show.
St. John, thanks for having me.
So Jeff, tell people a bit about you. Where does that surname come from, by the way?
It's actually Polish.
Wonderful.
Yeah, someone told me once that it was, not quite literally translated as stick in the mud, which does me a great service as a seller who's trying to, hold the attention of people. But I think it actually translates more literally to like still water or a pond or something. It's less than flattering, but not quite pejorative. It's a Polish name.
I feel your pain because obviously I have an unusual first name. I like to say unique rather than unusual. But I mean, when you say still water, it's not like Lake Michigan, which is obviously pretty choppy. It can be a rough bit of water, right? The Great Lakes.
The Great Lakes, we're surrounded by enormous bodies of water, and Great Lakes are almost descriptive of what they are. It's funny. I worked with a guy a long time ago, and he said, "I just don't know how you can do it." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Be so far away from the beach." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And this was a guy who was near the Atlantic, and he's like, "I'm like an hour away from the beach." And I'm like, "Man, I'm like 30 minutes away from a huge body of water. It has tides occasionally, but not often. You can surf them. You can't see across to the other side. And hold on, bonus, no salt, no sharks. So what do you mean I don't have the beach?"
Yeah, exactly.
And
I think you handled that objection so well.
It's just about knowing your product, right?
Yeah. Oh, good. Now, Jeff, tell us people about you. Like, how have you ended up where you are now? Because you're up there. We've done a research. You're no slouch. So how have you got to where you are? Give people a bit of a run through your bio.
The short answer is completely accidentally at almost any turn. But the long road, I've been selling now, gosh, we're going on 21 years. And no, we're going on 22 years. That's how long it's been. I'm starting to forget. I actually got my start in medicine. I got a degree in athletic training, and I was helping injured athletes return to the field. I was working with athletes to keep them on the field, and spent a couple of years working in a hospital, and knew that wasn't my long-term place. I'll keep this story as short as possible. Instead of giving 2 weeks notice, I actually gave about 2.5 months notice.
Okay, cool.
And so it gave me some time to really ponder my next move. And someone suggested to me, she said, "Jeff, why don't you consider selling?" And I looked around behind me to see if she was actually speaking to somebody else, right? I did a double take. And after putting up a little bit of a, like, "What do you mean? Don't you know me? We've worked together for the last 3 years." She said, "Look, you're 24 years old. You got nothing better to do. Take the interview. I got you one. Dust off your resume." And one thing led to another, and I got a job offer to sell in the orthopedic equipment space. So I was selling knee braces and ankle boots and just the things that you would expect, from someone in the sports medicine field. And I remember when I was hired, I got the offer, and I said, "Are you sure you want to hire me? I don't know anything about business." And my manager, who ended up hiring me, he said, "Here's the thing, Jeff. I can teach you the business stuff." He said, "But the intangibles You already have. You speak the language. You work in this space. That's important. You're a hard worker, a good person. I've checked your references, and I know that to be true. I can teach you the rest. And oh, by the way, I talked to the people you're working with right now who would be your customers, and they all told me to hire you. So you want to give this a shot or what?
Love
And
it.
I tell that part of the story because I think that is really crucial to my experience, because I assumed that I had to be a certain thing. I had to be a certain person. I had to have a certain personality in order to be good at selling. And I don't know about you, St. John, but I don't like to try things that I don't think I'm going to be good at, right? Someone gave me an alternate point of view that changed my perspective. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give this a year. If I hate it after a year, I can go back to medicine. I'm good at that. And so that year came and almost went, and I almost walked. I almost left. And it wasn't until I actually had someone who could come in and mentor me and take me under his wing and show me the things that maybe where my assumptions were incorrect, show me the things that were possible. It wasn't until I started to see exactly how I could be good at this that I really caught the bug. And that was, going on 21 years ago. So I left that company after a couple of years. That no longer was the right position for me. Took a great job. It was the best job I ever had for 7.5 years until it wasn't anymore. And then I opened up my coaching and consulting business in, 2015 now. And here we are.
Amazing, amazing. So you've just talked about this whole concept of someone seeing potential in you. They'd obviously done their DD, their due diligence on you, but they had a belief in you even though maybe you didn't see the potential in yourself, right?
Yes, though they clearly saw stuff that I didn't see.
Yeah. Which is a sign of a great mentor and a great coach, isn't it? And so I mean, let's just open up for the listeners straight in and get into it. Great to get the context and how you kind of, because it's what it is, it's that accidental salesperson. We fall into sales and sales chooses us. We don't choose sales deliberately as a career. Like I think when I started, I certainly, coming from a farming background, I didn't think I was going to be training sales and training rural sales teams that sell to farmers. It's not what I went to university for and my parents and my education and the rest of it, and probably the same with you. But people fall into it, and one of your main philosophies is, to sell like yourselves and be you.
Yeah.
But not everyone's cut out for sales, are they?
No. I think a lot more people are cut out for sales than they think.
Yes.
And I will go as far as to say that there's someone out there for everyone, or there's a lid for every pot if you want to go there. Nice. And I think in order to be good at it, you have to really want it. And I think there are a lot of people out there who don't want it.
Yeah.
But I really do believe that as long as there is someone out there for everyone, and we have the internet, the means by which we are even speaking right now, St. John, proves that if you work hard enough in the right spaces, you can connect with people that you can uniquely serve. And that is what Sell Like You is about. I just think that not everybody's cut out for it, because there are a lot of things that you have to put yourself through in order to be good at it. But if you really want to, and if you're willing to withstand those headwinds sometimes, if you're really willing to do the work, I think a lot more people can be successful than they think at first glance.
And I think that's a very polite answer. I think that's a good answer, a sensible answer. But I'm going to go a little bit further, around, you're saying, look, everyone can make it. Tell me what if they really want it, what does that look like? Because the reason is there's people here, listeners that listen and go, I didn't choose sales. And it's all right for Jeff and St. John. They've been doing it a bit longer now. But, I struggle in sales. To define or paint a picture, you talk about what good looks like. Show them what good looks like. Show me what good looks like when it comes to a sales rep wanting it and wanting to hone their craft. What are those attributes? What are those disciplines, rituals? What do those behaviors look like, Jeff?
Wow. So they're going to be different for every person. And one of the things that I realized, and I've really, quite frankly, only recently realized this, when I've heard all the things about you need to have a strong morning routine, and you need to have all your ducks in a row, and you need to, have these certain things. Look, that's different for everybody. And when I tried to just borrow someone else's morning routine, or when I tried to take someone else's word for, here are the 6 things you need to do every morning, I didn't find that sticking with me very well. As a matter of fact, I, I don't like being told what to do.
Yeah, no one does. It's called
And
reactions theory. Yeah.
and so, when I feel like, okay, I have to do this because I have to do this, and darn it, Jeff, sometimes you just got to grit your teeth and get after it. That is not a very good way to build a sustainable behavior. But when, even just at the beginning of this year, I started thinking, I said, look, Jeff, if you want to change the results that you're getting, you might need to change the human being that you are. You might need to really decide on what are the things that are going to move the needle for you. And then once I started thinking about the new behaviors I needed to impart, or the new behaviors I needed to adopt, I started just naturally grouping those things to, what do you know, 5 or 6 things that I do every morning because that's the best time to do them. Right? And so now I have arrived at this morning routine. But here's the thing. That morning routine and I are in integrity with one another, where we weren't in the past. And when I talk about integrity, most people say, oh, well, that's just doing what you say you're going to do, right? Telling the truth. It's the way you act when no one's looking. Yes, all of those things. But when I think about salespeople, I think about integrity being the collective overlap and the alignment of what you sell, who you sell it to, how you sell it, and why. Those are the things that you really have to have in integrity in order to really do your best work. And that's what it means to really want it, right? Like a lot of salespeople want the paychecks, but they don't want the 15-hour days. The people that you work with, the people that sell, that the things where you help them in the rural farming and agricultural industries, they're on the road covering a lot of ground.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dashboard time there.
Yeah. Very
And
much so.
that is something you have to endure. I mean, I put a lot of mileage on my car when I was in the field, and it doesn't touch what some of the people listening to this show will put on their vehicles during the year. So, I mean, are you willing to endure the ugly stuff sometimes to not just make the commission checks, but before we get to the commission checks, are you willing to learn the lessons you need to learn? Are you willing to make the mistakes that it takes to learn those lessons? Are you willing to put your foot in your mouth so you can learn never to say that again? Are you willing to read the books, listen to the podcasts, prepare like no one else prepares? And do you get the fulfillment from the work, or do you just get fulfillment from getting paid? Because there's a lot of easier ways to make money. St. John, you know this.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
It's brutal. Sales is brutal. There's nowhere to hide. There's no desk. There's no ivory tower. I mean, you made a really important point there around like morning rituals. You found something that worked for you, that worked for Jeff. And often we say best practice is common practice. So you've managed to find. Now, you said something really interesting. You said, if I want to change my results, I have to change the human being. And we're talking about identity. We're kind of circling around the edges of identity, which is what I want to sort of climb into. Is some people, well, what's the stats? About 47% of people didn't choose sales, roughly, let's say. You can find what stats, lies, and statistics. You can find them anywhere. So I'm going to use that as a roughly as a proxy. Most
let's
people,
go with it.
Yeah, let's go with it. So majority of people did not choose sales. Sales is brutal. There's nowhere to hide. There's an accountability, all caps. You got to make your numbers. You got to put up rejection. You have to have high levels of self-worth. As you say, Jeff, there's a lot of dashboard time, a lot of travel time. When you're out in the field, when you're doing medical as well, you know that too. My question would be then is like, what is the identity shift you think that people that are maybe new to sales and haven't chosen sales need to start adopting? What's that mental shift? Can we get into that? Like, I know it's so cliched, but the mindset shift, the identity, the way they talk to themselves. And I know you're going to say it's going to be different for everyone, but there must be some common fundamental kind of characteristics, common traits. What are your thoughts?
One, it's not about you. 2, it's not about what you sell. It's about why they buy.
Said.
3, this might not work needs to be a mantra, not something you're afraid of. And it's not about you, it's about them. I think that's something that we can all appreciate. If we've been selling successfully long enough, you know that, you solve problems, you don't sell products.
Yes.
It's about buying motives, not what you're selling. That's Jeffrey Gitomer, one of my earliest
Yeah,
mentors.
that's right.
And I go to Seth Godin with This Might Not Work. And I also go to Seth Godin when I think about the art of selling. Selling is an art and a science. The science is the process, the art are the methods. The science are the things that need to happen, right? You need to introduce yourself to a stranger at some point. You need to understand what it is they're up against. You need to make a compelling offer, and you ultimately need to support that through that offer through the closing of the sale or the opening of the relationship, however you want to look at that. Those steps have to happen. That's the process. Your methods, how do you put yourself in front of the stranger? Do you pick up the phone and call? Maybe. Do you send a bunch of emails? Maybe. Do you get in your car and knock on their door? Maybe. Do you send a carrier pigeon or smoke signals? Maybe. I don't care how. What works for you? Hey, get it done, right? And so that's where I think a lot of people confuse the art and the science, the methods and the process. And when you break it down to here's what has to happen, that's kind of set in stone. It's pretty rigid. But when you realize that you can make those things happen any way you want, that's when the clouds open up and you start to see the sun and you see the blue sky and you start to see endless kinds of possibility, and we can be creative with it, which leads us to, hey, this might not work, but I'm going to try it because if it does, it's going to be a great story. And if it doesn't, I'm going to learn something.
Yeah, 100%.
Now all of a sudden we have a completely different mindset around prospecting, don't we? Or around marketing, or around closing the sale, what have you, right? So those are the mindsets I think that we need to. I mean, I've said a lot there in a small space of
I'm
time.
grabbing it.
Where do you want to go from there?
Yeah, well, where I want to go from there is, sometimes people can fulfill those things and take that attitude and, all these cliches, but they're true. I like cliches because they're truisms. Your attitude defines your altitude. And what you said there is like, I think the premise of it, this, I know this, and all the wonderful guests we've had on like yourself is like sales is unlimited. There's untapped potential. It's unless you're capped, like you can go for it. So you can talk about those clear skies and those blue days and those sunny days because yes, there's going to be, and like, I mean, we're getting all deep and metaphorical when you're talking about the Great Lakes, but you control your own weather, don't you? You control your own weather and you create your own economy. But that's dependent on the attitude and the mindset and the skill and the discipline, the commitment you bring to your job. And I think the thing that you said right at the start of the conversation was you've got to want it. You've got to hone your craft. And as you said, there's a bevy of free resources out there. Your podcast, my podcast, hundreds, thousands of different articles. But, we can teach what we want, but you've got to walk through that door and take responsibility yourself, right?
The information is out there. Do you choose to take that information, work with it, learn from it, try it, fail, try it, succeed, try it, fail again, try it, maybe succeed again? Do you choose to take the information and turn it into your own expertise? Because with AI, before we even got to AI, there was so much content being put out into the world. Now with AI allowing us to access it at an alarming pace, yes. The cost of knowledge is going through the floor. It's going quickly. It's quickly approaching zero. The value of expertise is going through the roof because now we have access to all this knowledge, and people confuse knowledge and wisdom all the time. They're not the same, St. John. You know this, yes. Right? And I'm sure that everybody out there listening knows this. So what are we going to do to take that knowledge, do something with it, to craft it into expertise? That is the question. And that is the mission, should your listeners choose to accept it. And that's one of the things that I mean by want it. Do you want it badly enough to make it your own? Or are you hoping that someone is going to provide you with the perfect thing to say to the perfect person at the perfect time? I don't know about you. I've been selling going on 22 years now. That may have happened like twice in my career. I just fell right in my lap.
I'm just laughing, Jeff, in amusement and in alignment with what you're saying, because you and I, we've trained a lot of people, and they're like, yeah, but what about this scenario? And what's the sequence of questions I need to... And they literally want the recipe to bake the cake for a specific day with us. It's like, hey, like we could go there, and I think the important point is, you have to take the tools, synthesize them, and own them and craft them to be your own expert. Because the way you do it and the way I do it will be different, and the way they do it will be different, right? But they want to be
Doesn't work.
handheld, almost spoon-fed. Here is the recipe. But what happens then when the customer goes off track and throws them a curly or throws them a question? Like, they're going to be flummoxed.
And on one hand, there's a lot to be learned if you're just willing to be flummoxed every once in a while.
Yeah,
But
this
that
might
comes
not
'cause
work.
you don't avoid that. That just
No, that's
happens.
learning.
But when you think about the recipe, you've got these cooking shows, I'm sure, in New Zealand, similar to what we have. Gordon Ramsay stands up in front of the whole, the team, the contestants, right? And he's like, here's how you make beef Wellington. I've been making it at my restaurants forever. You're going to do this and this and this and this and this. And he does it, and it's perfect. And you're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And then the people, the contestants, the home cooks or whatever, they are right there in front of him with him looking over their shoulder. Same tools, same ingredients, same everything, same recipe, and they can't do it. They do it, it's edible, but maybe 1 out of 10 comes up with something perfect. And you're like, well, wait a second, what else do you need? I gave you the recipe. I gave you all the ingredients. I told you exactly what to do, when to do it, to the second. I told you all the things to look for. I told you what to do when stuff goes sideways. And I wouldn't serve this at my restaurant. So there's more to it than the recipe. There's something that comes along with the earned wisdom and the earned experience of knowing, I know the recipe says I'm supposed to let that go for 10 minutes, but right now it's only been 8 minutes and that looks the way it's supposed to look. I gotta go.
Yeah.
I gotta flip it. I have to do whatever because
Yeah.
there are all these little variations that we can't take into account when we start. So one of the things that you have to be able to do is think on your feet.
Yes.
And be willing to step outside the recipe every once in a while. And, I guess, if you follow all the recipes perfectly, you'll eat most times. But do you want to enjoy the meal? And do you want to, more importantly, create something that's never been done before or create something that's never been eaten before? That's what's really fun.
Yeah.
And that's what... Fortunately, I don't think as many people, maybe it's that 47% stat. It's not as many people want to really create. They just want to show up. They just want to eat.
Yes.
Hard to blame them. But
Yeah, look, bills to pay, cost of living, we get it. But I think the people that are listening to this show and yours and others and all these esteemed leaders want to continue to get better. So if we just milk the recipe metaphor just a little bit more, like
let's see what we can get out of it.
Yeah, let's see what we can get out of it. Like the garnish or the seasoning or your own touches. When you think about chefs that share recipes from Nana and Mama and all these kind of things, they add their own things. So, okay, so that beef Wellington is going to have a little bit of rosemary in it, or it's going to have this on it, or we're going to put this in it and everything else. But the thing is, you have to take the knowledge and then make it your own. And there's a very natural way of selling. And then, I sell my way, you sell your way, and because you are you and I am me. And we can give them the recipe, but they've got to deliver it in their own authentic, genuine way. Because otherwise the seller's going to pick up on this, hey, you've just been to a training program like Jeff or St. John, you sound a bit weird. You don't normally talk like this, So they've got to own it, haven't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got to be yours. And that's where it gets back to that integrity, right? To what you sell and who you sell it to, those first two things, your company normally picks that for you, right? You join a company, that part's taken care of. But how you sell it and why, that is distinctly underneath your control or within your control. And that how part is a big key. It's a big key.
Yeah.
And, are you going out there in a way that you feel is best for you? Are you going out there in a way that you feel like you're in as much control as possible, or at least that you're putting yourself in this zone of genius that gets talked about a lot? And, that's why, I want to go back to something that we talked about a little bit earlier, which is, are you the human being capable of delivering the kind of results that you want? Right? It's not just, okay, let me take these scripts, let me read these books, let me whatever. Like everything you do throughout your life, right? Anything that you do in your life is responsible for the results that you're currently getting. And I read, James Clear said this.
Yes.
He wrote Atomic Habits, right? He said, your life is perfectly designed for exactly the results that you're getting right now. Don't like the results? Change the inputs.
Yeah.
So what are those inputs? right? And it gets back to a lot of the things that we've been talking about
Yeah.
already. So, what are the behaviors that you want to instill? What are the things that you want to consume? What are the lessons that you want to learn to make this thing uniquely your own and put that flourish on it? I think that's important to consider.
Well said, sir. And I just love that distinction on that sort of matrix you kind of sort of drew for us in your head is the what and the who is largely determined by the business that you work for, but the how and the why is up to you. And you could really own that. And obviously you have a very distinct way of selling that is your Jeff way of selling and vice versa. But, I really love what you've said there around how are you going to turn up? How are you going to serve? What is your intent? Are you focused on your own selfish needs, or are you focused on the meaning rather than money, and so forth and so forth? I think the listeners get that, but I think it's really important to know that the how and the why are up to you. And I thank you, Jeff. That is a great, great piece of advice. Now, often, if we change checks a little bit, reps often kind of like they're not winning the deals and they're not performing, and the reps kind of get it. The team. Let's talk about the manager. Because often the reps get it in the neck, but maybe is it the reps' fault or is it the manager's fault? What's your thoughts? You knew it was coming. You knew this question was coming.
There are some very cynical ways of looking at that where you can say that everything is the manager's fault. Okay. I don't know if that's entirely fair. And I'm going to say that every situation is different. And sometimes, look, if the manager is enabled to enable their reps and it doesn't happen, then certainly it's the manager's fault. If the manager is stuck behind their desk, looking at dashboards, looking at the computer, checking emails all the time, doing nothing but, approving price and discount requests, and, they can't really they're just buried, then I think the organization is at fault in that spot. And there are way too many sales organizations that bury their managers so far that they can't actually manage.
Yeah.
Okay. They certainly can't lead. Some of them can't even manage. Right.
Yeah, correct.
And so in those cases, it's not the manager's fault.
Yeah.
But someone's got to hold the reps accountable. And the person in the prime position to do that is the frontline manager. Now, I believe it's the toughest position, toughest job in the sales organization, because you got it coming at you from all angles, right? You got pressure coming from above you. Why aren't they driving more activity? Why aren't they bringing in more deals? Why are they discounting so much? And then you've got the reps bringing stuff to you that you've got to kind of shield from the people above you too. Hey, here's what we're seeing, and it's ugly out there, right? Here's what we're running into. We don't have good responses for this. Someone came and knocked off our technology and they're selling it for 30% less. And you know what? I'm looking at it. It's pretty good, right? Yeah. Like those are the things that you, as the leader, have to absorb. And that's got to be put somewhere. And a lot of times it goes right to body fat percentage, blood pressure, blood sugar, alcohol by volume of the blood, right? And so it's not a dangerous place to be in some ways. But when the leader can be very clear and very focused on what their priorities are, when they can make sure that they're holding reps accountable to the results that they agreed to, not just were told to deliver, but that they agreed to. And ultimately, when they have a good idea and a clear idea of what good looks like here in their organization, that creates standards that everybody can get behind. That creates coaching that is clear and concise. That creates just an environment where people can see themselves succeeding. And that, I believe, is, maybe the managers, the frontline managers aren't directly responsible for that. That's probably a senior leader, but they are the torchbearers for what that looks like in their organization and carrying those orders out.
You answered that so fairly and very, very professionally, and I appreciate that. Because,
well, I've been in those shoes before.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. You're buried and you're getting it from all sides and all directions. So you talked around, you emphasized twice there, the importance of showing them what good looks like, setting the standard, and then holding them accountable to the agreed not told agreed KPIs. Now, Jeff, from your own experience in the field, and obviously what you've done over your career, is there's ways in which managers fail to keep their teams accountable. And ultimately, if you think about NFL, you think about rugby, the coach usually lands with the coach. Like if the team's failing, they don't fire all the players, they usually fire the coach. So in terms of accountability, let's talk about, without being super negative, because that's not what we're about, we're here to help and serve, is like, what are the ways you see, in what you've seen in your lived experience, where managers are failing their teams and therefore failing themselves because they're not keeping them accountable? What do you see?
I think the first way, and it's the most profound way for me that I've failed in the past. So this is what is most top of mind for me, is that most managers tell, but they don't listen. And when I have had really good managers in the past, they've listened to me. And when I've had poor managers in the past, they haven't. Well, we need to do this, Jeff. I need you to, I don't know, create more pipeline. Okay. Here's what I'm doing. I've been really successful. It's not working anymore. I need a new story to tell. I need a new product to promote. I need something. Like, I have exhausted the opportunities here. A good manager will say, that's interesting. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's dig in. Let me roll up my sleeves. Let me come to where you are and let's spend a couple hours brainstorming. We need to do some territory planning. What else? Yeah. Whatever. A bad manager will just say, yeah, but I told you need to create more pipeline. Figure it out. And it's like,
how helpful, how useful.
Okay. And the disconnect is what I call an awareness of the ground truth. When you're not in the field all the time, you start to tell yourself stories of what the field looks like based on what the field used to look like. When you just expect the reps to follow your orders because you used to do what they did.
What I used to do, Jeff.
Let me tell you how it used to go for me.
Oh,
yeah, I'll tell you what.
Oh my goodness.
I'll tell you what, that doesn't work. It's I don't know about you. I've got kids. They're almost 15 and 16 now.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, I used to hear, because I told you so.
Yeah.
That has never been uttered in my house because it doesn't work anymore. Like, it's a different environment. We have to parent in a different way. And I'm okay with that. I wish it worked every once in a while, but right now I also know that it won't get me the results I'm looking for anymore. So I have to change. And we go back to the manager having the hardest job in the sales org. Well, it's tough to just tell them, oh yeah, we'll change, figure it out. Like, we need to be more collaborative, and it starts with listening. So the biggest difference between the best managers out there and let's just say the ones that wish they were better, are their willingness to listen, their ability to listen. And again, maybe some of that is restricted by the organization, but their ability to listen, their ability to empathize, and their willingness to roll up their sleeves and get to work with their reps. I believe that good managers believe their team to be their customers. When you step out of the field, you don't have customers anymore. Yeah, the team you lead, they're your customers. What's in their best interest? Do they recognize what they need in order to succeed? Are you helping to eliminate those roadblocks? A good friend of mine, Jason Bay, he likes to say, do you eat the complexity of their job for them so they can be ready to go and just kill it because they're good at what they do and you put them in position to succeed? Like, what are you doing to actually enable their greatness? Those are what the best managers do. And whether it's organizational or whether it's personality in nature, there just isn't enough of that being done anymore.
Yeah, totally agree. A lot of managers will pay lip service and they'll suggest, and we're not downtrodden all managers here, but
there's some awesome ones out there.
Yeah, there are. Unfortunately, there's not enough of them, as we say. And so that's why there's you and I and lots of other good people out there hopefully helping these managers become great coaches and eating that complexity and being out in the front line and collaborating, all those things. But a lot of managers, particularly to their owners, and I'm going to say this to owners that are listening to this, their managers appease their owners or the board and suggest or pay lip service that they are managing and coaching their team. And what I see is I say, show me your diary. Show me your diary. You know where I'm going, Jeff, don't you? Go on.
I
You
do.
finish it. Finish it.
No, go ahead. No, I want to hear your version.
My version is show me your diary and I'll show you your team. And I often say, show me the manager, I'll show you the team. And so if you're not spending time with your team, either in a coaching conversation or out on the road or windshield time, truck time, dashboard time, whatever you want to call it, you're talking exactly what you're doing here. It's like you're living in an ivory tower, seeing things by spreadsheets, which are obviously lagging indicators, not leading indicators. And I think what Jeff's saying is, all our wonderful guests have said, is you've got to get off your touche, roll your sleeves up, go out there and feel the temperature with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And don't say to them, oh, what I would do is I'd just drive up more driveways. Or, because in rural, we literally throw them the trucks, the truck keys and say, there's your territory. Even if Bill or Bob wasn't a very good rep and they've got to clean up all after that. It's not helpful. I mean, that's not even managing, but this lip service, it actually, we're talking about the accountability of reps and managers holding reps accountable. Who holds managers accountable, Jeff?
Hopefully they're managers.
Yes, let's talk about that.
Owners,
boards, what do they do? What do they need to see? What are the telltale signs where they see that they've got that mediocre manager that maybe is pulling the wool over their eyes or just not probably doing or walking their talk? Because managers, they're persuasive. What's that phrase? A man will never argue with the source of their salary.
I have a couple of times. Maybe that's my
me
problem.
Too, and it hasn't ended very well. Yeah, so I work for myself now, and I'm completely unemployable.
I think what this comes down to is KPIs tend to stop at the frontline seller level, and so frontline managers will often be left with no other option but to throw their team under the bus. Because when the only measures or KPIs, even OKRs that you have are lagging indicators, and we don't know what it's going to take to get to where they need to go, right? In the absence of revenue, what do we have? If you have nothing, then you got to work on that part, because we can only manage what we can measure, and you can only measure so much. But one of the things that I did for myself as a rep, and I have recently been able to modify for my own business now, is I created I modified actually from someone else, a point system that I read about one time that basically scored various sales activities. And what I knew was, because I was willing to try it, because it might not work, but it ended up working and it proved itself out, was, okay, I get a point for, introducing myself to a new prospect. Okay, great. I get 2 points for every meeting that I schedule. I get 3 points when that meeting is held. I get a 4th point, a bonus point, when that meeting leads to another meeting or a next step, right? Close the sale, extend the conversation. And what I determined was, okay, I'm going to score 25 a week. Yeah, let's see where that goes. And you know what? That was enough. So I knew even in good weeks or in bad weeks, the leading indicators were on a trend that was going to lead me to success. Even though some weeks were awesome and some weeks were terrible, what I knew was the effort I was putting in was directed in the right place and in the right amounts. So I knew what good looked like for me in my territory from an activity standpoint, and that was validated on the long term by the revenue growth.
Yeah.
I hit most months, but not every month. Right? I hit just about every quarter, but there were some bad ones in there every once in a while. But I knew that, and this is the thing is, I was taught very early, don't get too high with the highs or too low with the lows. Well, you have no other choice when all you're paying attention to is whether or not you hit the number. Are we doing the things that we know will get us to the number? And if we're doing those, that has to be enough, and there needs to be agreement. When that's enough, the revenue tends to follow. If it needs to be tweaked a little bit, and I tweak that system for myself over time, well, that's what growth ends up looking like. But again, it's this willingness to try something that's never been tried before, because it makes sense that there is something like it that works. Like a system like that, yeah, sure, it makes sense. We just need to tweak the dials and make sure we get the numbers right, but then we can go with that. Those are the kind of things that don't exist in most companies. And so a manager is left to do nothing to fight for herself or for himself other than say, well, the revenue's coming. or the revenue's here, and then they go beat on their reps to say, hey, we need some more revenue here because my job's on the line,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then you end up with all those things that you want to say, but you can't you just can't say out loud. And then now we've got a culture or an organization that can't speak with one another candidly, and that is just a bigger sign of trouble. And that's how things spin out of control fast.
Well, it's a bit like when your kids don't talk to you and they don't tell you the truth. It's really, really hard to do that. I think you said that is a very clever little system, by the way, the point system, Jeff. I love that. That's real clever. I love that. That's such a, I don't say cute in a demeaning way. I think it's just a very, very nice little system. Let's talk again
I've been
about...
called cute before, St. John. It's okay. I don't mind it.
So, like, KPIs for managers. If you were the boss or a board member, forget the sector, let's just think about the fundamentals, the chassis, the framework. Would there be a point system you set for your managers, like you do as you were in a rep in the field, or do you have KPIs? What would that look like? Because again, I'm using philosophy. What does good look like? Like, what would that look like?
Yeah, I think it looks like how many of your reps are meeting their KPIs.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It doesn't have to be that complicated.
No.
It does not have to be a different set, right? But again, do we have a reasonable set of leading indicators
Yeah.
that are validated, or at least on the way to becoming validated? And are we running the experiments to make sure that we essentially can really define what needs to be defined? And once we have those, then it's just a matter of, okay, are your reps, how many of your reps are hitting their leading indicators? And if they all are, then great. Please help me with the forecast, right?
Yeah.
If they're not, then okay, who's a green light, who's a yellow light, and who's a red light? Right?
Yeah.
Who's crushing it?
Yeah.
Cool. Who's on the border? Who are we concerned about?
Yeah.
And why are we concerned?
Yeah.
Can we give some qualitative analysis to that?
Yeah.
Why are we concerned?
Yeah.
And what do we need to put? What do we need to put in front of them? How do we need to enable them in order to take them from yellow to green? And then there are the red lights, and it's like, okay, what's the problem here? And this might be, maybe this is someone who's crushing it, but they're just a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, or maybe it is someone who just can't seem to get their act together. Right? So then there's a remediation plan, or maybe is this someone that we need to look to move on from? Right? But understanding, we will never be able to perfectly predict what is going to happen. You can't guarantee a win, but what you can do, and you can come really close to guaranteeing, is putting yourself in position to win. And that is what that is the job of the manager, is to put their team in a position to win, remove the obstacles, enable them wherever is possible, pour rocket fuel on the things that are working, and to know where they're lacking when things aren't going well, and to know what they're doing really well when things are.
Well said. And I think there's a mix again. We started the conversation with the qualitative stuff. Now we're talking about the harder quantitative stuff, and then we're talking about, the leading indicator for a manager is how many of the reps are hitting quota, and a traffic light system, or you can have a point system for coaching conversations, ramp time of new rural reps, onboarding process, buddy, mentor. We could go down a whole rabbit hole in there we don't have time for. I've got another question, Jeff. I'm really interested what your thoughts are on this is, how sometimes businesses retain reps for too long, underperforming those reds, yeah? And it hurts them. Now, obviously, the greens, the high performers hate that, so that's the quickest, fastest way to lose your high performers, as you well know, and you and I know. But also, again, I'm going to turn the spotlight to the managers. Often, owners, boards, C-suite exec tolerate underperformance from managers for too long. They hold on to the managers too long because the managers make excuses, and then, the bad ones, and there are good ones and there are bad ones, and we've been very fair about that appraisal, who will throw their team under the bus, and they'll blame the team or they'll blame the market and everything else. But why is it? I don't know if you spot it. You're much more on authority on this than me. And what you're seeing is, why do people move so slowly on underperformance at manager level? Because I think the manager's the multiplier. What's going on there, and why do they stick with managers for much longer than they need to? Because it's very obvious that manager is not performing because their reps aren't performing. But the spotlight gets pointed on the reps. But why do we tolerate underperformance for too long? Is this a human condition? Am I talking absolute garbage? What is it? What's going on?
No, you're not you're not talking garbage. The fact of the matter is, it's really hard to replace anybody.
Mm.
And think about it. How many, let me ask you this, how many excuses have you received or heard for why people can't prospect more?
Yeah.
Lots of them, right? And
Yeah.
and some of them are good, some of them are better than others, some of them
Yeah.
are just crap,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Same thing. We got to replace somebody. What does that mean? Well, first of all, it means I have to have a very difficult conversation about someone who's going to experience probably a drastic change to their livelihood. And no one wants to. I don't think there are very many animals out there who really enjoy putting people out on the street, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I've had to let people go in roles before, and it was like, man, it was egregious what these people did. And so it's a very clear, like, they got to go.
Of course.
It's still hard to do, even when
Yep.
it's inarguable, right? So one is the pain of having to go through it. You know what's worse than firing someone? Trying to replace them.
Mm.
Because let's think about the lacking that many companies have in terms of onboarding, in terms of playbooks, in terms of training, in terms of local knowledge and getting people up to speed. Let's think about how difficult it is once you find someone to hope that they live up to the promises they made during the interview process, and two, you can live up to the promises that you need to make about getting them up to speed quickly enough. That is a needle to thread sometimes. And you know what? The more you think about that, the more you start to think, I wonder if Jeff's going to be okay. Maybe we can turn this ship around, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we can do something to
It
make
looks
things
insurmountable.
right. I believe in him.
Yeah, I'm just going to interject on one thing though. Like, I go, I'd love your thoughts on this one. I think the conversations are only difficult if you weren't clear about setting expectations up front.
They're still difficult because of the human element.
Well said.
You're right. Again, even when someone is clearly not performing to the standards that they agreed to, and they just can't be helped,
Yeah.
it's still hard.
Yeah, well said.
It's
Well said.
still hard. And then if you're the manager, you have to then do the work in their territory to maintain everything that's going, and like you didn't have enough to do already, right? So it
Yeah.
becomes, at some point it's here's what sums it up. It stops becoming it stops being about the rep, and it becomes about the manager. And so now it's like, okay, I could fire this person, but then what?
Yeah.
And that then
And
what?
then I've
is
got to
not
pick
what
up
you want.
all their work, and I've already got
Yeah.
enough on. So we talked about the pain of that difficult, the human element of having to have the conversation, even though the expectations were clearly set out and you've been tracking them, because you don't do a set and forget with your managers. I mean, I've spoken to hundreds of wonderful guests like you, and you know they say the first thing is like, obviously. It's really important. We over-index in rep training, but we under-index or under-invest in manager training. And as you rightly say, Jeff, we've got to support our managers, got to give them the tools, the onboarding, the coaching. And I think we chronically under-invest in most cases with managers because of that multiplier effect. Let's talk about the replacement then. Is this fear-based thinking? What's going on here? Like the replacement, like, yes, it's a pain, but is the pain greater of having an underperforming manager greater than the pain of all the time and effort replacing them? What are your thoughts there?
It all depends on your level of certainty of how quickly and how well you can get someone up to speed. The uncertainty there is the problem. If you've got a line of people waiting to take that role that have demonstrated excellence in it before, and you feel really strongly about your onboarding and your own cultural, indoctrination of people, if you can get people on board and really engaged very
Yeah.
quickly,
Yeah.
then it becomes less of an issue.
Yeah, that's right.
But you and I have both been there.
Yeah.
That is a head in your hands moment of, okay, do we really have that stuff? Most companies don't.
Yeah.
They just don't.
Crazy, isn't
And
it?
most of the companies that you and I work with, it's an owner who's still attached and involved in the business and has done most everything in the business and still could, but doesn't want to anymore because they've earned their way out of it. They want to find the right people, but the right people are certainly not just, they're not very numerous, right? They're not very
Yes.
available. And so everything is a risk. And when you hear about the nightmares of how much it costs to hire someone, and then secondly, how much it really costs you when you hire the wrong person,
Oh, 100%.
you start to talk yourself into, again, maybe I
Well,
don't
maybe
need to
we
get
can
rid
sort
of this
this
person.
out. Maybe we can turn this around. So then, So good, Jeff. I mean, I know I'm throwing questions at you, and you answer them so well. It's based on experience, right? So it's not. There's nothing wrong with that. It's the next question then is, if we go with this thread a little bit further for listeners or managers or owners, what's one of the best sort of runways or channels for succession planning? In farming, we talk about succession planning. The daughter or son is taking over the farm, or pops or grandpops. We got to get succession. The cliches. We don't need to sort of insult the intelligence of our listeners here. They already understand that you create two problems when you take your best rep out of the field and make them a manager. You lose the most sales, and you also then have an underskilled manager because they don't normally have the skills to manage people because they just manage themselves. Sometimes lone wolves. Who knows? But question is, what's a really good strategy in that success? Am I on the right thread here? Are you recruiting from within? Because they're not very numerous. I've got this obsession at the moment, Jeff, with 5%, not 5%, but like the top 5%. And I just learned this in the Winter Olympics. Basically, 5% of the athletes win 95% of the medals, world championships or Olympians. So that 5%, obviously by number, isn't very numerous. They're not very available. They're off market or they're happy. Maybe the best way to replace your managers is that the manager is coaching the team below them to replace them at some point. What are your thoughts on that? That stewardship.
It comes back to listening. It comes back to listening. Does your top rep need someplace to go? Does your top rep get bored? Does your top rep just need a new project with, maybe a little bit of incentive compensation put on it to stay engaged? How many times have you seen that the best rep ends up being a manager because they feel like the company feels like they have to give them something in order to keep them?
Peter principle. Yeah.
Yeah. And does that rep even want to become a leader? Maybe not.
Maybe not.
So let's get creative. And again, it's not making assumptions. It's sitting down with your team and saying, hey, what does your career arc look like? What do you want to experience here? And I think it's also having a tough conversation that, hey, just because they're awesome and just because you run a great company doesn't mean that you're going to be great together forever. You see someone that's on a trajectory. I go back to my mentor. When I left that company, he wrote me a recommendation letter.
Amazing.
He said, Jeff, you are not in the right position for you anymore.
What a leader.
Right? That's the thing. And so it's telling yourself the truth. And again, having the visibility and the vision to say, what am I going to do to make sure that these people stay engaged? What am I going to do to make sure that these people stay fulfilled? What do they need from me? And there might be a point in time where I just can't give it to them, in which case I'm going to help them find their next thing. And when you have that kind of visibility, when you have that kind of forethought, not only do you see succession planning, but it's also the succession to the reps that are going to leave. Are you building a bench? Do you have a place to recruit from? And the economy's really weird right now. The business world is really hard right now. It's tough for people to get out of the day-to-day and actually think about the future. And I don't think that's anybody's fault. That's just, those are the academics speaking, right? It's way easier to say than it is to do, but that's what has to happen.
Yeah, and we just looked, obviously we did some research on you before you jump in, as we do with all our guests, to respect them. And, your latest LinkedIn article is actually sometimes it's not about reducing costs, it's about going for growth. Obviously intelligent growth, but sometimes you just can't cut and slash your way through a wobbly or a volatile world economy. Sales is the answer, and you've got to be able to grow because someone is still somewhere going to be buying, which then obviously if someone's buying, someone's selling. Just last thing on the managers. I think there's two roles with the manager, in my view, in my humble opinion, and I might be wrong, is one, to be available and credible enough to coach their team. Secondly, they need to be a great talent scout. Now, we talked about looking within. What about looking out, like talent scout? Because, a great coach, if I sit down with an All Black, our beloved All Blacks here, and I sat with one of them on a plane the other week because New Zealand's really small, right? So It does happen. It's weird. But anyway,
that's cool.
He said to me, he was the most capped All Blacks. We'll try and get him on the show. He said, it's all about selection, St. John. Because I explained what I was doing. He goes, well, a lot of it's about selection, what you're talking about. And he said, sometimes coaches in sports, coaches' biggest thing of success is getting selection right. So we talked a lot about reps, we talked a lot about managers, and then talent scouts. What are your thoughts on managers and as you rightly say, they're overwhelmed, their plate is full. I haven't got time to go out and go to this party or this cocktail party or this event or this discussion group or this field day or demo, all the things we do in rural. Like, what do you think? Like the talent scout, because otherwise we're going to have to do a rescue Hail Mary when Bob, our best rep, leaves us, and we wish him well because, as your wonderful leader said, Jeff, you're not in the right space anymore. You need to go to a new place. What? We got to be thinking ahead, right? You wouldn't do that with a pipeline and go, oh, okay, we've got no more leads. Well, you're paying a debt because you weren't prospecting and canvassing for the last 6 months. Why do we leave it to the last minute to recruit when we should always be having conversations with talent? What's going on there?
Because nobody likes to prospect, and because you can only, I say this all the time, you can only do so many things first thing in the morning. And so it's usually because the systems or the resources or a combination of the two are not in place to where the day-to-day, it never runs itself, but where the day-to-day kind of carries its own momentum, right? That flywheel starts to spin.
Yeah.
Without that flywheel spinning, you can't think about the future.
Yeah.
Right. So that normally it's an overworked manager who is under-enabled, and the culture isn't such that it doesn't demand their direct involvement at all times. We are human beings. We're only capable of so many things. And that, I think, rightly is not the highest priority of any manager, unless you're trying to build a team from scratch, or you had a bunch of people leave, or there are some business situations where recruiting and retention are number one, highest priority. But usually with a company, and I see this a lot in agriculture, things are moving. They've been moving for a long time.
Yeah.
There are very few brand new farmers.
Yeah. Well, there's less of them now. Yeah, and less.
Right. So, from that standpoint, things are already in motion. So it's more important to pay attention to the ball that's in front of you rather than looking for, farther down the field. But when you recognize that you can't look further down the field, that is a sign that your systems, your processes, your routines are not in a place where they need to be, because you are susceptible to that top performer leaving. And if she's not leaving, maybe she's just going to have a baby and she's going to be out for a while, right? Like, it's something you're really excited about, but it's still a hit to performance for your team. We have to be able to absorb those things, and that means getting out of this right now.
Yeah.
Weeds.
We call it in the weeds.
Yes.
Like get your head out, or the crow's nest. And so if you had the systems, and I think if you coach your team to be more self-managing, more self-empowering, you have then got that capability or capacity to look up and look ahead at the game that's in front of you. Jeff, I think you'll like this question. I hope you will. I hope you like the other questions. Not sure. So in fact, you've answered them so beautifully. Thank you. My friend, what would you change about the sales training system right now? Like, what's wrong with the sales training model? The reason is we actually do a lot of good research. We only have good human beings that come on this. And you're not, like you and all the other esteemed guests we've had, you're not showy. There's no G-Wagon. There's no Rolex. There's no funny haircut. You're a good-looking dude, but like you don't have all the flashy, blingy stuff. You're completely down to earth, common, pragmatic, crisp, concise language. Perfect. Unlike me. What would you fix if you had a magic wand with the sales training industry? Because I see a lot of crap, polite term, which I call out because I'm on a mission. I'm a farmer's son. The reason I do what I do is those reps are often providing very necessary off-farm income to keep that family afloat. So that's why I do what I do, and restore the right of a rural rep to be trusted and respected and admired, as opposed to treated like a commodity. And there's a lot of that, but it's not about me. What would you change about the sales training model? What's broken? What would you fix if you could? What do you see is the problem with it right now? Because I'm sure you've got an answer for this one.
The thing that I am working on that I think differentiates me, and that's where we're going when I train and when I consult with teams, is I listen and I co-create as much as I come in with a plan. And it's not to say that I don't come in with a plan, but I think the fastest way to lose a rep's trust is to tell them that you can do their job better than them, or to intimate that you can do their job better than them. And again, just much like leadership, I have burned bridges as a leader when I've come in and said, here's how we're going to do stuff. And then someone's like, okay, new guy, great, you got a title, great, you got a resume, great, you got a LinkedIn following, whatever.
Give you 90 days and come back and talk to us then. Exactly.
Yeah, but I've been selling this for the last 10 years. I'm really good at it, and you're going to tell me I'm not good enough? And so I think it comes down to listening. And that's where this approach that I've been working on recently of what good looks like here. Look, we know what good looks like out there. You got a stack of books behind you that'll tell you what good looks like. But it's going to be a little different in every organization. And so the thing that the change that I'm trying to bring to the sales training, industry, if you will, is listening to what their reps are already doing really well and using those lessons to co-create curriculum that is going to be impactful, that not only is it going to work based on proven best practices, but the reps that are taking the training can see themselves succeeding in it because they've seen their colleagues do those things, or the legendary colleague who worked there 20 years ago that isn't around anymore, right? And when we can distill that into something that is, reproducible and trainable and documentable and durable, it lasts for a long time. Now we're talking about sustained results and sustained success. And quite frankly, even though it is bespoke, the reason that most people don't do this is because it takes a lot of time. It's not something that you can just rip and replace and scale to the moon, right? But I think it's a lot more fun. I certainly have a lot of fun doing it that way.
I love that answer. So basically, listening, co-creating the curriculum, like we talked about the KPIs, they're buying into it, they're collaborating on it, and therefore they've agreed on it, and I think you're going to get a greater chance of uptake. Jeff, wonderful conversation. Where do people we can get you on LinkedIn, which we'll put in the show notes?
Sure.
You have a wonderful podcast. Tell me what that podcast is called.
It's actually, I have a podcast that the feed is still active, but it's basically, I haven't recorded anything new in a long time. It's called Rethink the Way You Sell. Yeah.
You did like 400 odd episodes, so it wasn't like a flash in the pan. You did a lot.
Oh, yeah, no, it's been out there for a while.
You've had some good guests on there.
Yeah, thank you. The why and the buy was the first question. It was the first podcast that I had. That started, we did that for about 5 years. My friend Christy and I did it. And then I put that down because it had run its course, and I started Rethink the Way You Sell. And I recorded so much content, and a lot of it was unreleased. And so we've just kind of been dripping stuff in the feed.
Cool.
My website is just jeffbajorek.com. And if you go to jeffbajorek.com/rural, because this is the Rural Sales Show, you'll actually be led to a free self-assessment. I call it Know Why You Win. It is really helping people understand how well they know themselves and their differentiators, and how well they know why their best customers buy. And those are the two primary components of what good looks like in any sales organization. So if you're interested, go check that out. It's free. You'll learn something. And, I hope you like what you learn.
Oh, I love that. That's such a generous gift. You're the first guest that's done that, by the way. We're about
really?
107 guests in who's actually set up a URL with Rural. That's amazing. Jeff, you've been great. You're incredibly fair. You've answered questions which, probably weren't super challenging, because we're never here to make our guests feel uneasy, but we want to have a proper conversation. We don't want to have a light, fluffy conversation, but beautiful answers, my man, and so well answered. And appreciate you giving us and our listeners time. You've given people a lot to think about, a lot to chew on. And thank you for turning up and being who you are and being the human that you are, and keep doing the great work that you're doing, serving your tribe.
Thank you, St. John. You do the same.
Thank you, sir. Hey you, hope you enjoyed this episode and you learned lots from it. It takes a wee bit of work to get these wonderful, amazing guests who are leaders in their own field on our tiny little show, who share their knowledge with you freely and generously. So it makes a lot of sense for me to ask you a tiny favour in return, which is to rate, subscribe, or share the podcast, or grow this YouTube channel with your family, your friends, or colleagues, or anyone in your network that you think will benefit from listening or subscribing to it. The reason for my request is really, really simple. I'm on an absolute mission to elevate and improve the world's perception and therefore performance of rural sales reps and rural managers like yourself, which in turn helps every rural business owner or leader on the planet. I do that by doing my very best to share the most effective sales and marketing strategies with world-class leaders and thinkers so you can get the leads, respect and sales results you deserve. But I can only do that when you help me get this channel and our podcast out to a bigger, wider audience. And the bigger the audience, the better our guests are going to be. So if you can help us with that would be brilliant. Now, as you know, unlike other podcasts, we don't include any of those annoying ads that interrupt your listening experience. But I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't make sure that you grab a free copy of my How to Succeed in Rural Sales ebook, which would normally cost you $20 on Amazon. You get that for free as a subscriber or a podcast listener. Or you can find out more about our rural sales team training or rural sales manager training programs. You can do all of this at our resources page, which is below the video here, which is www.ruralsalessuccess.com, where you can click on and download copies of my other books here. I have another book out last year based on Ryan Halliday's brilliant book, The Daily Stoic, and it's called 365 Rules to Master Rural Sales Success. So mastering yourself, mastering rural sales, and mastering rural sales management is kind of a 3-in-1. So make sure you get that as well. And also in the notes below here, you have an access to my free new AI training tool called Field Coach IO, which can talk to you and train you 24/7, anywhere, anytime zone, no lag, no waiting, get answers that you need right there and then for the deals that you're working on. It's got all my IP inside its knowledge base, which is extensive, 13 years of IP that you're never going to access from the likes of Chat or Claude or Gemini or Grok. And you can instantly get access at a touch of a button with no waiting. You can, it will coach you or train you on your specific live sales scenario you're facing, whether it's pricing or timing objections, existing supplier, higher authority, farmers that have ghosted you on quotes, the specific questions you need to ask to make those conversations count. It will even analyze your sales calls for you to put you right where you might be going wrong, as well as map out your territories. It syncs to Google Maps and Google My Maps, and process your export leads from CRM to prioritize which leads you need to follow up with the highly hyper-specific, customized, relevant follow-up you need to get those deals, those dead deals revived in your CRM. So whatever you need is going to give you immediate specific answers, and you don't need to suffer or struggle whilst you wait for answers even from me. So immediate instant coaching right there and then just when you need it. Or even talk to you in your truck as you're about in your territory, which is awesome. As long as you've got great internet covering. So our members and Field Coach are absolutely loving what it's doing for me. So many more use cases I could bore you with sentences here, and my development team and me are adding new tools to it all the time. So you can take Field Coach for a spin, a 15-day test drive, and try it out, see it out for yourself for just $1. The link to Field Coach is in the notes below as well. So I personally want to thank you, my friend, my dear listener and subscriber, for sharing the show with others. Really, really appreciate that, because we can make a difference. It's hard, rural sales is hard enough. Thank you for investing your time with me and my guests, because I know you're super busy. It's very busy and noisy out there. You've got many choices and options where you choose to spend and invest your very valuable, precious time. So hope it's been time well spent for you, and you've learned something from us and our guests, and it's helping you become a better rep or manager, or you as a human being. Appreciate it and appreciate you.